Are we good? All right. Good morning, BSides Cleveland. Okay, so who's already been here for the past couple of years? Who's been here? Thank you. All right, who's not been here yet? All right, that's pretty cool. All right, so little lay of the land. I got a couple of notes here, right? Welcome to BSides Cleveland, sponsored by Trusted Sec. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, we have 3 tracks. This is track 1. We are also simulcasting the keynotes downstairs. So, it might get a little crowded for Ian, who's coming up, for Chris a little bit later, and then for Dave, who's closing. Track 2 is below us in the B-side liquor lounge and arcade, and then track 3 is downstairs out on the back patio, right? So we have some lock sport people back there. If you're interested in learning about some lock picking, there was a capture the flag this week, and we will be announcing winners a little bit later. There, I believe, is a crypto challenge somewhere in some of the material that you might have in the bags, etc. We do have some giveaways, including, thank you to the Sands Institute, a 4-month Net Wars subscription, which is worth like $2,700. So that's going home with somebody. And wireless, I believe we have on the chalkboard over there. There's the SSID, which is BSides-Cle, and then the pre-shared key, the password is tip your bartenders. All right, so I want to thank, first of all, our sponsors. Please give a big round of applause to all of our sponsors because they made this happen. The event is sponsored by Trusted Sec. Our diamond sponsors are Cisco and Blackbox. We have our silver sponsors, Hurricane Labs, Optiv, Sands Institute, Stealth Care. Our AV partner is Something New Entertainment. Our beer sponsor, sponsored by Hardbit Solutions, featuring Actual Brewery. And Zach, what do we got this year?
We got an amber called Electron.
And last but not least, video recording sponsored by our very excellent friend Adrian Crenshaw. Hold on, I got locked out of my phone. All right, real brief. I'm Rocky. I'm going to introduce our organizers real quick. Justin Alcorn, my wife Susie, Anna Janine Herman, Justin Herman, Tyler Hudak, Joshua Lochner, and Ben Piger. We have some excellent talks this year. Some very great people came to town to help us put on this gig. I'm going to introduce a couple of them. We do have some rookie speakers this year, which is great. We also have some veterans who have done this many times. A little bit of housekeeping. Don't be a dick. Everybody be cool. Honor and respect everybody. If applicable and appropriate, hugs are always welcome. Hydrate. We have free alcohol all day, so don't be dumb. The Bloody Mary bar is about to start over there. And that's pretty much it. Have fun. So, once again, welcome to BSides Cleveland, sponsored by Trusted Sec. I think, we've got a pretty packed house right now. Ian, what do you think? 5 minutes early? All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, please, a warm round of applause for our first keynote of the day. I'm going to let, like all other talks and all other B-sides that we've held, they can introduce themselves, right? So everybody, please, a warm round of applause for Mr. Ian Amit.
Good? All right. It's not even 9 a.m. Oh my God. All right. This is going to be awesome. So, when Rocky called me, it was like 8 months ago or something like that. That's some crazy planning ahead. And asked me to Keynote. I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. I had no idea where I'm going to be, what I'm going to do. They booked my flight like 6 months ago. At that point, I was like, just book it from whenever. I have no idea what my plans are. So I was really struggling with coming up with a theme or a topic for a keynote, and it hit me a few days ago that I might be able to be a little controversial. For those of you who don't know me, that's very rare for me to be controversial. So instead of just giving you some regurgitated, recycled talk with some topics I've researched before, I wanted to focus on stuff that I think that matters and stuff that might be a little outside of our comfort zone for most of us. I mean, it has been for me for quite a bit until I kind of change focus and figure things around. So I'm going to talk about why gray is good and how ugly is your baby. And I'm going to have good examples for both. So be warned, this is not a kid-friendly situation. So hi, I'm Ian. I've been doing this, not this speaking like an idiot at 9 a.m., but this as in security for over 20 years now. Background with anywhere from operating systems. I started with Linux and kind of compiling and decompiling and making sure that my Sound Blaster Pro 2 has a driver. It didn't. So I kind of botched the standard Sound Blaster module, and it kind of worked. And that's how I got in security. So I've been doing this for 20 years, a little over 20 years. Application security, risk management, red teaming, everything that you can hack, basically, including people and processes and politics. I love politics. But let's talk about something that's close to really all of us. That's the essence of a lot of what we do. Who here has dropped an OD, found a vulnerability? That's it? No. Come on, don't be shy. Oh, there we go. All right. So you know how it works, right? You find something really cool, and you're like, this is the worst thing ever. Who's the idiot that wrote this software or put out this firmware and left that thing open? This is horrible. This means the end of the world. This is like I can't believe this is happening. And you start working through issues with whoever it is, the vendor, whoever you're disclosing to, and you're trying to articulate, look, this is insane. I've got to be rolling in money right now from the bug bounty or the super lucrative job you're going to offer me, because it's horrible. It's like an O-day, just trash everything. It's like a CVSS 9.7, right? But then it doesn't. And it's not really destroying the world. And it's not really that bad. I mean, it's horrible. You got root on something, or you managed to break something, and there's a ROP chain that you pulled out of your ass, and you're like, woohoo! Check it out. I've got code running on your system. But it's not really that bad. At least from the vendor's perspective, because it's still standing. And he can kind of still work through it. So how did you figure out how good or bad was your OD? What was your scale? What was your measure? Just the badness or the awesomeness of your IDA reversing skills? Or the real impact on, shit, this is going to be horrible. Do you want me to tell you when this should go on, and you can just mute it until then?
It's currently muted.
Oh, okay. So I'm just should just not move from here. All right. So there's a problem somewhere between the awesomeness of our bugs and O days and what the muggles out there think that our O days are worth. Issue 1. All right, remember that. We'll get back to it in a few minutes. Who here does pen testing? You've got to be more hands than the Von droppers. All right. The rest of you are trying to get into pen testing, retired from pen testing. It's like, all right. So pen testing is awesome, right? Because you get paid, you get hired to break something. It's not like vulnerability disclosure, just O days and whatever fun there is there. You get hired to find problems with shit. But therein lies the problem again. Once you find all the vulnerabilities, is it good? Once you find all the vulnerabilities and put them in the report, how do you articulate how bad is Vuln A versus finding B? What's your scale? What's your measure? Anyone? What do you use? CVSS? Critical, high, medium, orange, green, fuchsia? Yeah, all of the above. I've seen reports that had like bombs. So 3 bombs is bad, 5 bombs is horrible. Seriously. The problem there is no measure of scale. I mean, the bombs could go on forever, like 7, 9 bombs. Like, I don't get it. So we have a problem with measuring the work that we do. And once you think about it, it's even a bigger problem for our customer who paid us to do some work to give them a report on how bad things are. So let's say that you manage to find some magical scale of, between a hog and a unicorn of vulnerabilities and issues, and then you go to the customer and try to articulate our report and translate it to something that he can work with or she can work with and try to fix and prioritize and work over time. So you have the debrief, all right? You're delivering the report, and you sit there with the customer and try to do some calibration. It's like your super critical, this is going to melt the beams of this building vulnerability needs to be translated to something that the customer understands and can work with. And this is the result. They just don't get it. Or, it's like, I hear you, but this is not going to ruin my business. This doesn't really matter. So it gets us to a weird situation where I was hired, you paid me to do something, and then you tell me it doesn't really matter. I've put up blood and sweat and item memory dumps and all the fun stuff and bought a license for like Metasploit and Nessus and put out this beautiful report, like 150 pages that I copied from Nessus. Nah, no one does that, ever. And I'm trying to tell you how bad things are so you can fix them because you paid me to do it. And you're just like, no, doesn't really matter. So we have a problem. We have a problem somewhere along the space of we find a technical issue as part of pen testing, and customer goes and says, what do I really need to do? How does that really affect me? Let's think about that problem a little further. And let's take a real-world example of someone who actually passed a lot of testing. All right, I know it's a beat-up example, but I love it because it just shows you how meaningless sometimes, all right, I have a solution or a proposed solution. How meaningless is the stuff that we do? So let's take a look at Target. Target was a horrible situation, right? Total pwnage, tons and millions and gazillions of credit card records and customer records, and the company should have tanked. It's like everyone predicted this is the end of the world for Target. Everyone's going to get fired. They're going to paint the red blue and just throw it to the ocean, and that's it. 46% profit falls a couple of months after, right after the breach. But then the news kept rolling in. Target stock has its best day in 5 years, 2 months after the breach. And we just went like, what the fuck? I was getting, I was prepping my slide decks, I was putting Target on them, in pitches to customers, in pen testing report. It's like, this is what's going to happen to you. You're going to tank, 48% drop, blah, 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 blah. 2 months later, fucking shit, this is horrible. Best day ever. And they're probably planning, I was like, you know what, fuck that pen testing. We made it hard for the attackers. Let's make it easier, Another breach. We're like Fortune 10 now. And then the Harvard Business Review, a couple of years later, actually did a research and says, this is scientific. Data breaches don't matter for the business. So yes, there's a big hype around it, and the American attention span goes like, oh my God, Target. And then it's like, oh my God, LeBron. 2 weeks later. And yes, the data breaches don't matter for most corporations. It's a bad rep. It's a PR nightmare for a couple of months. But then everyone moves along and finds the next Kardashian to look at. And we're left there with our pen testing reports going like, now what? And the numbers back it up. If you look, this is the Target breach, okay? The stock was already declining. It's if you ask any stock analyst, this is pretty fucking normal behavior, okay? Anyone who's betting on the Target stock wouldn't have shorted it, wouldn't have bet on it. The world just kept on going. There's a little glitch here, but the trend goes on. And guess what? A few months later, it's it's almost doubled its price. No, not doubled, but it's way up there. Normal stock behavior, the business didn't really crumble, the steel beams didn't melt, everything goes on. And, as I mentioned before, Target has gone through a bajillion pen tests. And they were PCI compliant. Right? Did it matter? Did it have any effect on the business, on the attackers? Did the attackers go like, oh no, we can't attack them. They're PCI compliant, bitch. It's like, no way. You gotta pull up like the old days and... So it didn't really matter. And I ask you again, how do you measure the badness or the goodness or the awfulness or the ugliness of what you find? So I mentioned before, one of my favorites is paint by numbers. This vulnerability is red. Awesome. What the fuck does that mean? Because the other one is green. Do I need to like finger paint them together? How does that work? And then we have the other scales of, I love the ones that start with high, but then there's also critical, or panic, or hysterical, exaggerated. Everyone comes up with their ratings, and it's horrible. It's horrible for us, and it's horrible for the customer because it doesn't mean anything. And if you try to kind of normalize your way of reporting, you'll go to CVSS, and you'll have this fancy formula. You start with the basic metrics, and then you factor in temporal metrics, and then environmental metrics, and these are just optional. By definition, by CVSS, temporal and environmental metrics are optional. How the hell is it optional when I'm trying to communicate something to a customer in context, and the only thing that you require me to do is get some basic metrics according to like CIA? It's bullshit. Anyone can pull numbers out of their ass and come up with a CV 9.7 that doesn't really have any effect on anything. So we have a problem, and it matters because when we get to the situations later on, like Target, like incident response cases that I've dealt with in the past year or so, for some reason, someone decided that I should do IR. All right, so if you don't know, I'm offensive guy, not just by speech and appearance. I like doing offensive security and attacking. Somewhere, someone in the business chain decided, oh, Ian can do IR. And I ended up doing incident response for quite a few ugly situations in the past year. And you end up walking literally into the zombie apocalypse of IT security. A couple of examples. An organization that was breached had ransomware all over the place. And I try to map out the network. And as we go along, mapping out the servers and the workstations and endpoints, you get to realize that there's a 1,500 segment, like a segment of 1,500 endpoints running Windows XP Service Pack 2. That was in the last 12 months. Service Pack 2. I was like, who decided to go with SP2 and not move at least to Service Pack 3? There's got to be some business decision somewhere by some MBA that goes like, this is the right one. So you walk into this, and you're like, and again, these are organizations that went through pen testing and risk assessments and reviews and were certified to a point. Some of them are government organizations that you rely on for protecting you on a daily basis. Another case, and again, this is why it matters. When you walk in and try to solve a Trojan rat malware situation, and you realize that one of the few servers that are infected in the network are the backup servers. And backups start disappearing. I mean, first of all, they're encrypted, and then volumes disappear. How does that work? Well, if you have control over the backup server, the attacker just goes like, poop, nope, unmount, done. And there are no more backups. Again, very big organization in the healthcare side of things. And you just go like, there are patient records out there. There's doctor information, privileged information, research, and it just went away. And you can't even go, with the usual ransomware kind of beat them on the head, go back to your backups because the backups are fucked up. So that's why it matters. You don't want to walk into the zombie apocalypse of what is going on here. I can't even walk around this network and try to fix things because it's so broken. And it happens because we're not able to articulate risk. We're really good at finding vulnerabilities. We're really good at finding technical problems. And it's awesome. I get root on this. I can smash the stack on that one. I can own your endpoints, your cell phones. But we're really bad in communicating why it matters and what needs to be done to fix the issue. And even when we're a little better and we're trying to say, if you do this, this, and that, that's how you fix it, we stay within the IT realm. We stay within, you got to patch this, you got to install a firewall there, you got to put some AV software there, put some controls, NACs. We're not thinking the way the business is thinking. And that's a problem. So you're probably asking me now, so Ian, what do you use? What magic metrics did you come up with to tell your customer how fucked up they are and why should they fix it and how should they fix it? Well, I didn't come up with anything new, to be honest. What I did is got back to the basics. Is got back to threat modeling. This is, by the way, the best slide on threat modeling you'll ever see. You're welcome. I stole it from the internet. There are other slides with like Venn diagrams and process charts. Stick to this, trust me. I'm not kidding, I'm dead serious. When you do threat modeling before an engagement, what you're basically doing is you get buy-in for the context from the customer. This doesn't happen in a void. This doesn't happen on your laptop when you're like, oh, let's start the pen test. So before I fire up Nessus, let's build a threat model. No. You do this with the customer. And they basically sign off on what are the assets that I'm protecting. And the first thing that you should do is make sure that they're not answering this server. A server is not an asset. Let it sink. A database is not an asset. You should grill the customer and say, no, you don't understand. Get the IT guy, all right, tell him to fuck off and bring me a CFO. Bring me someone from the business line that can tell me what is the asset for this company, for this organization, for this business line. What matters to you? And map those assets. Around the assets, you'll find all sorts of supporting stuff, like technology, servers, databases, endpoints. You'll find controls, like security systems, firewalls, antiviruses, but you'll also find controls in the form of processes and stuff outside of our little unicorn, rainbow unicorn of IT world that actually helps protect the assets. And then you'll need to map out, all right, we're not over yet, you'll need to map out the threats. Who is it that you're afraid who's going to attack you? It actually matters, because if you're afraid of China or some anonymous hackers, that's one thing. But if your threat model is the Russians, that's a completely different thing. Because you as a pen tester, as a security person, will need to figure this out and work in this context. And by the way, the best tip for anyone who's doing pen testing is to put this at the top of your report. Because everything later on just refers back to the threat model. And that's the best way. And it doesn't matter if you rate your vulnerability 9.7 or this finding critical or extreme or yellow, if it has context. And you can name the assets, you can identify the protections that worked and the protections that failed. When you simulated or when you came in from the approach of the Russian threat model, I was so fucking late. I was just like, threat model on Google, bam. Model, threat, Russia, and it works back. It just worked perfectly with this slide. When you do that, it doesn't really matter what number or color or special magical animal you rate your finding as, because everything comes in context. And that is really the key, because at that point, you're speaking the same language. And that's what we've been missing this whole time. What I'm trying to tell you is that we've been doing stuff so wrong for so long that I'm embarrassed, almost ashamed. At some of I'm looking back at my pen test reports from like 19, 18 years ago. I'm like, oh my God. No, he didn't. No. Because when I look today, they're completely different. I don't have colors. I mean, I do have colors if the customer wants to paint something somewhere, but it doesn't really matter, because it's all about the language. It's about getting back to the customer and working with them on identifying how does stuff work. So here's a quick recipe for kind of putting things together and moving on from the technical finding. So this used to be what we reported on, right? Or this still is in a lot of cases. And it's going to be an uphill struggle, by the way. This is not easy. You're not going to just show up to your next customer and go like, "Pa, threat model." They're just going to go, "Where's my 130-page document from Nessus, from your pen testing gurus? I need like all those findings so I can file them in the cabinet and until next quarter or year or audit." So it's going to be an uphill battle, but brace up. This is going to be fun. Impact to environment. And this talks about just the local environment. So let's say you get a technical finding on a server, on a software, whatever it is. What's the impact? Remember that building, that CVSS 9.7? It didn't really crash. So, it shook the foundations, it made a little tumble, but it was still standing at the end of the day. What is the impact of the environment? Did I crash the server? Is it usable? Is the data lost? Is the service still accessible? Can I reboot it? And just go like, fuck it, forget it. Next. It's a once in a X situation, all right? You're gonna face that. Reboot it, re-image it. It takes less than a minute to re-image a new server, like in the cloud. Bam, it's up. It's running. I don't care. What's the impact to the business? That's the next question, or the next factor that you need to kind of create in your report. So, taking a step beyond the technical environment, how does your business work now with this threat manifesting itself? Did your customers stop buying stuff? Did your supply chain break and you can't fill in the stocks anymore? Are you not going to be able to run any financial transactions? Those are the questions that you should answer with the customer again, as far as impact to the business. How feasible is it? Is it one of those, so when I handled my laptop that way, all right, and it was next to the microwave, which was working to heat up my Hot Pockets, your little firmware on the thing just went like, how feasible is it? What is the probability of someone finding the same thing, and how complex it is to make it happen? All right? Oh no, this only happens when the Unix epoch clock ticks like midnight on a blue moon or whatever the fuck it is. All right? Factor that in and work with someone who knows something about statistics and probability so they can help you articulate that and put things in context. How relevant it is to an actual aggressor. Remember the Russian model? The threat model, sorry. If the Russian threat model is not in our scope, why do I care? All right? If I'm afraid of insider threat and their capabilities start and stop at physical access and some basic usage of the software or of the environment that I'm providing them, why do I need to care about like ultra reversers that need to have JTAG access to some board somewhere? All right, so factoring what is the relevancy for the aggressor. Do they have the skills? How much access do they have to the certain attack path that I'm portraying here? What's the placement on the chain? You know what chain I'm talking about. So figure out, and again, I'm not bashing the chain, I'm just saying it helps put context around things. Is it way up? Is it further down? Is it post-breach that I'm afraid of? Put things in context so that the business can say, you know what, I've got controls around here. All right, I'm able to break that chain before your finding. So I'm okay with it. And I'm going to be completely okay with someone articulating that back to me. Relevancy to assets. As you remember before, assets are not computers per se. They're not databases. If I have a technical finding on something, on a supporting technology, what is the relevance to the asset that that technology supports? Find a rating system. Find a way to say this matters, this doesn't matter, how much it matters. Sometimes I like to go to the monetary side and say, this is going to be a $10,000 situation. Or this is going to be a $10 million situation. Some businesses will actually accept both risks, depending on the scenario. Target would have accepted a $10 million situation if it would happen once a year. They'd be like, okay, where do I sign? Done. A small mom and pop shop wouldn't accept a $10,000 situation if it was likely to happen every 6 months. So go back to the numbers and try to work with the business on articulating that risk. Again, the focus is risk, not vulnerability, risk. And then factor in probability and frequency, which I basically did in the last sentence. How often would it happen? What's the probability of it happening? And this is basically what I call risk. So we started from a technical finding, and again, I was too lazy to go like PowerPoint fingers and arrows. So I was like, all right, so let's make a big table and just paint the last one red. So all of these factor into risk. How do they factor in? I don't know. Find a way that works for you. There are tons of risk metric frameworks around there, from Octave to FAIR to whatever it is, just some fancy Excel voodoo. Find something that works for you and find something that you're comfortable working with and that you're comfortable negotiating, so to speak, with your customers so that they can see this and say, now I get it. Now I get why your fancy ODA or technical finding is relevant or not relevant for my organization, and what should I do to protect around that. Other ways of how to do this, again, yes, you will need to go beyond pen testing. You're going to have to go red teaming at some point. Now, red teaming doesn't mean bring the A-team, chopper in, rappel down, crash into their build. No. It just means looking at the threat model that we've seen before and making sure that I cover more than the IT environment. So if pen testing really focuses on the IT stack from top to bottom, red teaming takes a step back and opens up the scope for everything. So when I look at assets and I look at the controls and I look at the processes and the people around them, now suddenly they're in scope. And when I look at the threat actors and the threat communities, now suddenly I have to do some more research to really understand what is their motivation, what's their capabilities, the technology that they have access to, what's the history of their attacks and behaviors, and how would they manifest themselves as a threat to the organization that I'm testing. And that really brings it up to a level of talking about risk. Don't be intimidated by the term pen testing. On the same note, don't fuck it up. I'm looking at you. If I see any one of you coming up with a resume that says red teaming experience and you have no idea how to get out of the IT stack, I'm going to slap you in your face. I'm serious. I'm tired of taking calls and reading resumes of red teamers, allegedly, that come from companies that say, oh, we do red teaming. All right. So you do pen testing beyond Nessus. Good for you. So you're doing what you were supposed to do in the first place. Red teaming. Again, adversarial simulation. Look for multiple domains. Look for physical, social, and electronic. Not just electronic, and maybe a little social because we phished them. Or we dropped a USB key. Dropping a USB is not red teaming. Get it? All right. Here's how it matters. And again, I'm breaking it down to you like adults. Vulnerability versus risk. The modality of a vulnerability is it either exists or it doesn't exist. All right? It's either fixed or not fixed. When you're talking about a risk, you're talking about reduction or increase. There's a range because of all those factors that we talked about. All right? A vulnerability can exist in one test. In the next test, it should not exist because it was fixed. A risk between two assessments should show reduction. And the reduction can be measured in multiple axes of measurement. It can be technical, it can be a process, it can be some legal thing that we did with our third parties to reduce the risk. To put the onus on them in terms of, if you fuck up, you owe us $100 million. Oh, thank you, sir. God, this is good. All right. Now my voice is going to get back to a man's voice. And risk is actually better to work with because you can track it over time and it actually has relevancy for the organization that you're working with. Impact. Vulnerability has a technical impact. Shit broke. Right. That's usually the technical impact, like the worst technical impact of a vulnerability. Shit broke. Risk has a business impact. You're fired. Or we're going to jail. That's a business impact. And it's way better when you're trying to measure this versus that. And last but not least, threat model. Again, when you're looking at it from a vulnerability perspective, I intentionally dropped the traditional threat models that you all are familiar with, like Stride and Dread and all that fancy shit, because it's software-centric. It looks at the software and says, what is the threat model for this software? What do I need to make sure this software is resilient and it's going to stay up and it's going to be consistent in the way it reports and keeps data? That's great if you're a software developer. Fortunately, we're not software developers. We're bad software developers, all right? We push out ugly, disgusting code, but that's not what we do for a living. Our threat models should be asset and attacker-centric. We should focus on what matters for the business, identify what we can rattle and test around it, and then look at it from an attacker perspective and go smash it and put things in context. We have like 5 or 10 more minutes, right, Rocky? Sure. Good? Let's talk about some other issues. Remember I talked at the beginning about dropping O days, and did it matter? Did it not matter? How did it impact things? This is the history of seatbelts. Okay? Seatbelts were regulated in the late 60s, 68, I think. As regulated, as in every new car that is manufactured has to have seatbelts. In 96, the first state in the US has mandated seatbelts. That was New York. 96. I look back at it like, no. I'm not that old. 96. This is the number of, I have all the numbers here. Sorry, 68 and 84. 96 came in from. I was like, it's not showing up on my presenter notes because it's on the fucking slide. Right. As you can see, I've prepared this very thoroughly over the past week. So this is the reduction in death tolls. All right? How many people died or did not die based on seatbelts? I don't have the numbers, but try to imagine what were the numbers here before seatbelts were mandated. How many people needed to die for someone to wake up and say, it might be a good idea if I'm not going to smash my head against the window on every fucking little accident and just splatter my brains around it, or fly through the window and just get hung on a tree. Might be a good idea. How can we solve this? Maybe I'll strap the people inside to the car so they don't just launch through it. How many people needed to die for this to happen?
All of them.
All of them. Yes. I remember when I was a kid, I was skateboarding. We didn't have helmets. We didn't have like knee pads and shin guards and shit like that. We just had like, oh shit, it hurts. Things changed since then.
I don't think it was how many, it was who.
Perfect. I'm here to ask you, what's your number? When you find something, when you want to try to articulate something, can we turn on the mic? What's your number for making a change?
Stuck on the highway. I think he's panicking. He's not going to be able to hear us with that radio. It's so loud.
So the accelerator is gone.
I need the accelerator to work again. The accelerator will work. It won't work! You're doomed.
Did you hear that? You can cut it off. You're doomed. It won't work, you're doomed. Not a lot of people remember that part of the Wired article. for some reason. Because, it's like a 7-10 minute segment. It's a lot of fancy car hacking. Greenberg's there is freaking out on the highway. I think we missed the part where there's like a big fucking trailer behind him just goes like, woof, because he stopped. And the law of physics says that a big fucking trailer is not just going to go stop behind a little Jeep. He almost smashed him. And he was legit freaking out. Now, if you look back, and I have my reservations about this research, and I've clearly articulated it to Chris and Charlie, and they know it. But if you've ever worked with a large old industry, like automotive, pharmaceuticals, aerospace, where's Chris? Any one of those big industries, and you had a big issue to work on, you had two options, right? You had this option, which is, haha, that's my best black hat talk. And you synchronize everything, so you get the PR, you get the fame, and you get everything. And then you piss off everyone, and they don't work with you anymore. I know it. Stop laughing there. They stop working with you. It's like the industry shuts down for your company. And you have to do a lot of fixing to fix that. Or you work with the industry, right? And you keep it low, and you work with them slow and make progress. Is there a way in the middle? Because that one, the latter takes a lot of time. It takes years and years for things to actually change. It takes years for major issues to be fixed. And I'm talking specifically automotive, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, aerospace, transportation in general, city management, all of those things. Big vulnerabilities, big issues. Some of them work slowly in the background, some of them publicized. What I'm asking is, what's your number? What would have happened if Greenberg just crashed and died on a highway? How long would it take for the industry to start fixing things? How many Greenbergs would need to die or would need to be publicized? How many car crashes do we need to do like a full forensic analysis to say this was an issue with hacking, or this was an issue with the electronics, or whatever system it is that we're trying to fix? Think about it. What's your number? Because right now, your baby is ugly. You're not communicating things correctly. You're not telling things right. And we've covered the pen testing side, and we've covered like the big bug side. And what I'm actually trying to say is very simple. If you go full on white hat, yeah, all right, that's nice. It might work. If you go full on black hat, you'll be rolling in money and all that fun stuff, but things are really not going to be fixed because those major incidents, most of them are not reported. It's just fact. Right? Target was just big enough to be reported. There are dozens of other big issues that just go unreported because the black hats know what is the threshold. They know exactly how much money to siphon from a medium, large, small financial organization to keep flying under the radar without reporting. And I'm basically saying a bit of both is good. Right? I could have shown you like a picture of me with gray hair if I had any. And gray here goes in multiple directions. Some of it is, yes, I'm fucking old. All right? I've been doing this for 20 years, and I'm starting to learn something new, finally. All right? I'm starting to learn what I did wrong 10, 15, 20 years ago, and I'm trying to fix it. And some of it is more on the black hat, white hat side of things are not always as clear cut. Be a little gray hat, right? When I started doing threat modeling in pen testing, no one asked me, no one told me, hey Ian, the next report that you do, can you please factor in a threat model? Because it takes more time. It's an investment. It takes more hours. You need to sit down with the customer. You need to argue with him. You need to bug him to get other people into the loop that are not in the IT world. But I went a little gray hat and just like, no, I'm not going to do this. Like, I need to talk to the CFO. I need to talk to someone who knows how much the business is worth and can quantify different elements of it. So I can give you back my findings in context instead of just another laundry list of high, 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 medium, medium, and a bajillion of lows that no one is going to look at. Don't even bother printing it. So be a little gray hat in both sides. Whether it's a hobby or a profession, whenever you do, think of that, what is the number, and how to articulate it. That's all I have for you. I really want you to go and hack shit, and not just technical, hack people, hack processes, hack your companies. It's so much fun. And that's it for me. If you have any questions, I'm on Twitter, I'm here. Get me a beer or a drink, and I'll be more than happy to talk to you. Thank you.